It's 4:30 in the morning. I've been sitting in my bed with my heart palpitating for about 2 hours. It wakes me up. Oh God. It wakes me up with pain, severe pain. Triggers my shakes to the point where I can't stay still and I'm gasping for air. This has to do with the mold in my house and also the 25-year-old pre-existing condition that's triggered every winter for 25 years, triggered by sounds for 25 years, triggered by pain or suffering or extreme infection for 25 years. But also there's something going on with my heart and breathing. It's fairly new. For the last 2 years, every time we close the windows or the mold gets bad or oh, my eyes are literally bursting with water from pain. It's not tears. I'm not crying. It's when the shakes get bad, and my chest. It's so painful that you tear up. Think of it as getting hit in the groin and then you tear up. But while this has been going on for 2 hours, there was a memory that I want to go over after I get some fresh air. Take something to take the edge off the shakes. And I sit outside for a couple hours, get warm up. I should get slightly better. I still will feel the nervous system. A 25-year-old thing isn't gonna disappear. That would be crazy. And that's why I have to treat it with a neurologist, and he has to give me a diagnosis based on my information that I give him. Because there's a fantasy of me out there that the psychological doctors have this fantasy case that my mother made up and then died and convinced me that her imaginary world and fantasy was real. I believed it until I was about 19, 20. I even tested out what she was telling me, and it failed. Every time it failed. My mother was very mentally ill. She had an addiction that wasn't being handled. She was taking pills without telling people. She was showing signs of mental illness without seeing therapists or medical professionals. She was moving me from state to state, moving me from doctor to doctor. She would tell one doctor her fantasy about me, and then she would go see another doctor in another whole state and transfer those files over, tell another fantasy about me, and then she would move to another state and another town and then try to get those files transferred and then tell another fantasy about me. And she was also trying to brainwash me into believing some of these fantasies, and I did until I became an adult and started going to therapy and realizing, well, this is just a fantasy world. This is my mother's fantasy world, and I shouldn't live in it anymore. So during my 20s, I started to get better, get well, and I am. I am out of this fantasy world, and now I'm tackling the real problems in life I have that are based on real documented events that I can describe, remember. They happened to me. They're not some assumption. They're not some made up delusion. They're not somebody's pre-notion. They're not a made up narrative, and it doesn't get me anything but better health care. Meanwhile, a lot of this made up shit was just to get money, attention, or something like that. All I need to get is proper medical care. And the memories and the descriptions and the symptoms that I describe can do that. So that's why I describe the feelings, I describe what happened, I describe the nervous system, I describe the numbness, I describe events which I took action, like biting myself, falling down during fireworks, going unconscious. Things like that can help the doctors, as well as giving them a list of medications that help and medications that don't. There's a very short list that helps. Benzodiazepine, triliptal, opiates, and small amounts of alcohol for 24 hours, but I pay worse for it the next day. And I don't do any of these without consulting a doctor and having him fully understand the situation. Not this fantasy that my mother had, not this fantasy my father wants to go with, not this fantasy that any of my family member got suckered into. If they talked to me and started to get to know me, they would realize it was a fantasy, like my brother and my nephew realized shortly. As they spent more and more time with me, they realized this was a fantasy that my mother was making up. And I didn't believe them, but now that I'm in my 20s and 30s now, I realize I should have and probably should have went to the authorities for help a long fucking time ago. But when you're 5, 7, 10, or 11, you just don't know how to do that. It is cold in my apartment. That is part of the issue right now. Anyways, I'm gonna go over the night I was homeless and I bled bleeding tears out of my eyes. And I had a sober urine, and I passed a breathalyzer. I was on no drugs that night as well. But I'm gonna go over that night and what was going on and how it was handled. I also want you to keep in mind that my emergency contact was my father, and they had his phone number, and I am sure that the emergency room was contacting him when these things were happening to me. I'm going to go over this. Now remember, I was homeless trying to get off the streets. A lot of it I was sober. The only thing I would do was drink once in a while when I actually could. But there was many times where I couldn't drink and I had to stay sober. And if it was cold or something was going on, oh boy, did I pay for being sober. And today, I am paying for my sobriety, and I am paying for my mother's fantasy world. I am paying for my mother's abuse, and I am paying for my father's ignorance, and I am paying for my family's ignorance. There's only 2 people in my family who weren't ignorant to this, and that is my brother and his son. Those are the only 2 people that get a pass. They spoke up, they mentioned it, and I denied it was happening. Come on, heater, work. Fuck. Yeah, I should speed things up. Okay, they get a pass because they spoke up about this to me and to my father. My father said that no. And then I said the same thing because I was being brainwashed and manipulated into believing this fantasy. So I believed in my mother's word and my father's word instead of the person who had a degree in psychology who was coming and making very good, very valid points. And I dismissed that, and that's my fault. So they do deserve a pass. But everybody else should have paid attention and done something a long time ago to help me. A long time ago. And now I am having to handle it myself, and I will continue doing that. But I think people should know some of the things that happened to me under that roof and while I was homeless and sober, as well as some of the things that happened to me when I was using, trying to treat myself. But this is so real, it's not even fucking funny anymore. It's so right in front of my father, so right in front of him, that it's not fucking funny anymore. It never was funny for me. You guys might think it's some fucking joke. You guys might like living in your fantasy worlds. But it's time to come out of that fantasy world and actually deal with the issue. Not this made up mental illness, not let's drug him and make him lethargic and throw him back to the street so we can buy more time. Not this bullshit. No, I don't have much time left. If you want to do that, just fucking off me and kill me already. Okay? If you don't want to deal with this, if you don't want me better, then just off me already. Don't fucking play with me. Just fucking off me. Okay? If you're going to kill me slowly, if you're going to drug me after all these years, and then you're going to try to make it up, say it's a fantasy, go with your own fantasy world, call it lies when there's plenty of evidence right in front of you, then fucking just off me already. Stop playing fucking games. Just come to my house, put a gun to my head, and blow my brains out. I have been suffering for 25 years because of other people's actions. It needs to stop. It needs to fucking stop. And if it doesn't want to stop, then just off me. I am not afraid of death. I've came face to face with my mortality years ago. I suffered when I was a fucking child, shaking, biting my own skin to figure out why I'm numb and why I can't feel no more. This is fucked up shit. And I've had to deal with it and I've processed it. And now I'm trying to get help with this neurological disorder, the shakes, the seizures, all the pain for the last 25, all the pain for 25 years. And they want to go back to their fantasy world, back to drinking martinis, back to hanging on a beach, back to hanging out with neighbors, back to lying to family members, back to manipulating family members, back to ignoring what's going on around you, back to hiding me from the rest of the family. I guarantee nobody is speaking up about all these things happening to me that I'm talking to my father about. I bet he's keeping it to himself so nobody knows all the horrible shit that he and them are ignoring and did. I bet you $100 that they don't fucking process this or do anything about it. So if you're gonna fucking let me die from something that your wife did, something that you did, something that had nothing to do with me, then fucking just come to my house and blow my goddamn brains out already. If not, I'll make it easier on you later. When I'm in the frickin' coffin or a hospital bed, you'll have to process that when you meet me in heaven and I'm sending your ass to hell. And if that's what you believe in. If you believe in reincarnation, have lots of fun being a tortured animal in a cage for your next life. If you believe in some type of other, yeah, I'll be there. I will be there to see you. Not just that. You will run into me before I'm actually dead, I'm sure. I am sure that there is people who will come and ask you, your son is dying, don't you want to see him? Your son is sick, don't you want to hear from him? And they will probably say no. And then I'll have to crawl up into the woods to die because I don't want machines keeping me alive. But no matter what happens to me, you did this to me. This is not something I picked for myself. This is something that was done to me at age 7. Oh, God, it's painful. And I am tired of it. I am not going to spend another 5 years dealing with some fantasy that my mother made up with. I'm not going to try to go with that. I tried that. It worked horribly for me. It kept me on the streets. It kept me out of work. Those pills fucked me up. And I never got better. My nervous system never got better. My mental health never got better. I got super depressed, super suicidal all the time. That's messed up. That's not better. Then I got off the medications, started going to therapy, started addressing these memories, started addressing the real issue, the real problem I had with Patricia. And then I also started talking about the numbness, the seizures, all that. What was already talked about with doctors. It was already spoke about many, many times. But we never had a full conversation getting to what it was. But now I have, and it's a fantasy my mother had. After talking through this night, after talking through other nights, after talking through many, many of these events, I have been told by many medical professionals that this does not sound good. This does not sound like something that should be happening to a child. And because it shouldn't be. It's called medication abuse. It's something that parents do when they want to prepare their kid for Social Security when they're adults, or when they're coming to this country and they want to get money from the state, or some parents just do it for the attention. They want to have this crippled child and they want to feel like the do-gooders. There's many reasons for it that I've discussed with medical professionals, and now I understand it. Now, in about an hour, I will go over in a more calm and orderly fashion the bleeding of the eyeballs when I bled out of my eyes. And why I'm thinking of this now is because this pain is causing tears to come out of my eyes, tearing up in pain, like if you got kicked in the testicles or your toe stubbed, that type of tearing.